It's the Matt Sager Podcast, Monday, January 21st, and a very happy Martin Luther King Day to you. Martin Luther King, I don't know what to say about someone that important, someone who looms that large in our history and our culture, one that's still really resolving a lot of the issues that were going on in his time. The only thing I will say is that I can very proudly tell you my mom marched with Dr. King on Selma years and years and years ago. Now, apropos of nothing to do with Dr. King, I'm doing the podcast tonight, as per usual, from the home studio in Manhattan, where it is currently, according to my app Dark Sky on my iPhone, 10 degrees feels like negative 5 degrees. It actually feels like negative 30 degrees. It feels like the thing. It is horrific outside. We didn't get any of the predicted snow, which means that in addition to being cold and dry and just miserable here in New York, that on top of all that, I did in fact see glass over the weekend, and I'm not prepared to review it. I'm still processing it all. I'm not happy, I can tell you that. I don't really recommend it. I'm certainly prepared to say that. But it's very difficult to describe either the movie-going experience in general or the stuff about it that really irked me and really pissed me off without giving away too much, without spoiling it. So I'm going to take some time and think about how to do a glass review. What I can comfortably say at this point is this. If you're looking for a good action superhero movie, don't go. It's not a fun movie. But if you're a fan of Unbreakable and Split, look, at this point, you've basically invested already. I know this is the fallacy of sunken costs, but I personally felt, even once the reviews started pouring in and they were just worse and worse and worse, and the people most close to me who were reviewing it, those that I knew and that I shared tastes with, were the ones who were really burning it. And I was like, oh God, this is bad. But I really did try to clean my palate and go in very open-minded, and I think I succeeded. And like many of those reviewers, I can tell you it's one half of a great movie and then just goes crazy. M. Night Shyamalan, maybe like Lady in the Water, we'll all rewatch this 20, 30 years from now and become enlightened by his glorious vision that we're too plebeian and dumb and dopey to grasp at this point in history. But honestly, it's a binary choice, and the choice is this. Don't go for a good movie. Go to turn the page and close the door and not have any unanswered questions about the Unbreakable universe. It's done. It's another attempt from Universal, who last year tried to launch a shared universe in the form of a Universal Monsters universe, which crashed and burned, I think, after the first movie in what was going to be this giant franchise was released. So they gave it another go. They'd already planted the seeds for this, with the twist ending at the end of Split. And I believe that whether it was Universal, whether it was Shyamalan, this is clearly, pointedly, obviously, an attempt at world building, universe building, an attempt at building a Shyamalaniverse. And Universal has a ways to go. Like, DC is overwhelmingly better in quality and quantity and just overall health of their movies than Universal. And that's not a compliment, although that may change, and I'll get to that in a bit. Things may be turning around at DC, as I'll explain in a moment. First, I feel like I've got to talk about this, and it's uncomfortable, but there are so many real problems in the world, serious problems. And when it comes to the creative arts, stuff that we just either produce as creators or enjoy as fans, there's a lot that is both great and terrible about current pop culture. And occasionally, those two do intersect. It is true. Part of living in this very connected age means that sometimes hateful people will come after you because you, for instance, reboot a movie that you loved as a kid, but this time it's an all-female cast and, ooh, women, they're taking everything from us. And that is silly, childish, dumb, and not worthy of anyone's attention. Now, Leslie Jones, don't know her, never met her, seems very likable, and like all the cast of Ghostbusters, I think she's hilarious. I enjoy her work tremendously on SNL, and Paul Feig, I believe him to be brilliant and creative. And so I actually assumed this whole time that when they did their Ghostbusters remake in 2016, that they had a great time making it, but that when the final product rolled out, that of course, as is their job as stars of the film, or director of the film in the case of Paul Feig, it is their job to go out and promote it and be very enthusiastic about it. But I assumed, which you should never do because that's how you make an ass out of you and me. I assumed that the cast, creators, crew, director, that they all recognized that they'd put someone out there that was not great. That the many, many reviews calling it lazy, dumb, uninspired, failed, meant that it was not a successful movie, creatively. The many reports, some of which I've been able to corroborate, of Paul Feig literally breaking down into tears during filming. I thought, all right, these people get it. That they really had a vision, and, you go into business with big studios, people clash, things happen, and somewhere down the line, it just went wrong. That's certainly what I thought about the 2016 Ghostbusters reboot. But Jason Reitman, son of director Ivan Reitman, has put out a little teaser I mean, just minuscule, but it is a significant announcement that he is launching Ghostbusters 3. And he made it very clear it's not taking place in the rebooted 2016 Ghostbusters universe. This is a sequel to Ghostbusters 2, which was a sequel to Ghostbusters. This takes place in the original Ghostbusters universe. Oh my God. I am so sick of universes and world building and crap. It's wonderful when it's done in a really novel, creative way, but you can really crawl too far up your own ass with this need to share a universe and need to make trilogies out of everything. But as Jason Reitman noted when he made the announcement, he was literally a fan of Ghostbusters before anyone ever saw it. He would go to the set with his dad, Ivan Reitman, the director. He was passionate about it. It inspired him to be a filmmaker, which he is to this day, and he's a great director. He really is. So him doing anything is news and exciting. Him returning to Ghostbusters, and returning Ghostbusters to a world in which they didn't just faceplant the way that the 2016 reboot did, seems to me like a great thing, and not in any way a besmirchment of Leslie Jones, Paul Feig, or any other members of the cast and crew, etc., of the attempted remake in 2016 of Ghostbusters. And yet, oh, this is very awkward. So, Saturday, Leslie Jones, her Twitter name is LesDog, LesDoggg. She apparently has this movie on her mind, and she's quite displeased. And it's interesting because when that reboot was announced with an all-female cast, people took to Twitter, and they left comments on the YouTube page for the trailer. I really question the taste of anyone who enjoyed that movie. I'm frankly shocked that Leslie Jones feels she has some reason for it to be attached to her name. But she'd apparently taken a few days to sit on this news, and just like the trolls who came out after her, saying, oh, you're rebooting Ghostbusters? You're ruining my childhood. You've raped my childhood. Really silly, dumb shit like that. Something I would not expect from Leslie Jones, who had to endure that kind of crap. And yet, this is why consistency and integrity are so important, and sadly so rare. I'm really, she's not a hero of mine. I think she's a funny woman. But I'm glad that she's not an idol of mine because this is terribly disappointing from Leslie Jones. She writes on Saturday on Twitter, so insulting. Like, fuck us. We didn't count. It's like something Trump would do. Okay, couple things. Let me zero in on the Trump thing for a minute because that is very important. I think Trump's a terrible human being and a disaster as a president. I'm not going to say anything more than that because I don't want people coming after me. But you run a risk when anytime something happens in the world that you didn't like, or just poor fortune, or just news that irks you, don't go around invoking Trump, please. That rings to me of, oh, it's raining out today. Thanks, Obama. We really could become this echo chamber of, oh, I stubbed my toe. F you, Trump. And one day that will be funny. But it is not inappropriate criticism for someone rebooting a movie back to its original state after you rebooted it and it was a disaster and critics panned it and the sequel was canceled. When Ghostbusters debuted, plans were in the works at Sony for an assumed sequel. Just, oh, of course we're going to return to this well. It's so great. Paul Feig just tells them to improvise and they just go. Look at him. It's hilarious. It's not. I don't know that Jason Reitman's Ghostbusters 3 is going to be any good either. Rumors are that it's going to be starring actual sort of Stranger Things style kids. 2 girls and 2 boys. But Ghostbusters, even the original Ghostbusters 2 was not that great. It's better than the most recent iteration of Ghostbusters we've seen, but it was fine. The thing about Ghostbusters was that it was lightning in a bottle. And it was understood by the cast, by director Ivan Reitman, what the themes and stories and where the comedy was going. It's a movie about trying to make your way in this world in a sort of blue-collar way. It's a movie about overeducated, underemployable adults who basically become exterminators. Throw out the genre, the supernatural, the Slimer, and that's what Ghostbusters is. And going back to that universe, whether it succeeds or not, has nothing to do with Leslie Jones. And as much as I'd love to blame everything on him, I promise you, Trump doesn't read his morning security reviews, okay? People have to, corner him in the TV room and go, Mr. Trump, I drew you a picture of the people getting bombed in Syria. And we wrote the word Trump all over the picture so that you can stay focused for 5 seconds. So he's not doing anything with Ghostbusters. Believe it or not, he holds no sway in the world of entertainment. And what sway he did hold as a pop culture figure, a gadabout, a wacky guy to cast in your film for 5 seconds and Home Alone 2, that's done. That's completely over. Any Hollywood cachet that Trump ever had, which was only ever minuscule, is long gone. So she goes, it's like something Trump would do, parenthesis, Trump voice, quote, gonna redo Ghostbusters. Better with men. Will be huge. Those women ain't Ghostbusters. So annoying. Such a dick move. And I don't give a fuck, I'm saying something. And people responded. Many thought she was quite hypocritical. That's my feeling, actually, for what it's worth. I don't know whether I'm more struck by the fact that she actually wants her name to be associated with that 2016 Ghostbusters reboot, or by the astonishing lack of self-awareness to write out this particular tweet and word it in this way. After correctly saying that internet trolls don't own Ghostbusters, that no one sole person with one agenda because of gender or anything else gets to lay claim to this movie that they had no part in the first place, she very correctly fought back against this troll campaign. And then, when things didn't go her way, she started one of her own. And while many people did take her side, many, including those who actually liked her version of Ghostbusters, correctly noted that it was not a good look. After suffering from petty, bitter, dumb, unfunny trolls on Twitter, to then turn around and do the same thing when Ghostbusters goes back. Not back away from the women, not back away from Paul Feig. Oh, yeah, a little bit away from Paul Feig. But the point is, movies get rebooted, and if it's a disaster, then undoing the reboot with an incredibly talented director who just by kismet happens to have been the first Ghostbusters fan on Earth. You do it. Got nothing to do with sex, gender. And so many people, including those who did like her version of Ghostbusters, said, listen, this is just, don't go there. And she responded with, it's very sad that this is the response I get. When the point is, if they make the new one with all men and it does well, which it will. What? English. You know what? If something bad happens to you, try to just stay off Twitter. Whether you're a radio personality, a comedian, a politician, you just come off moronic and just wrong. So she goes, when the point is, if they make this new one with all men and it does well, which it will, I don't know what she's trying to say there, but okay. It might feel that, quote, boys are better, end quote. It makes my heart drop. Maybe I could have used different words, but I'm allowed to have my feelings just like them. Again, when you're emotional, stay off of Twitter. I sympathize with Leslie Jones. If I were in her position, it's impossible to know how I'd feel. Again, this whole time, I'd assumed that everyone involved with that movie was very happy to just see it go away. And although I believe Leslie is very wrong, and I'm stunned that she would take to Twitter and literally mimic those who made her life a living hell 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, rather. I do feel sorry that something bad's happening to someone who I basically like, respect, don't know, but am fond of her work. But the lack of self-awareness is just breathtaking, really stunning. I'd be interested in seeing what other people have to say about this, but Jason Reitman, I can tell you this. His agenda is that he is passionately in love with Ghostbusters and has been since he was like 5 years old. He was on the set, playing with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, back in the days of all these practical effects where you could actually, this wasn't computer-generated stuff. You could actually play with props. And he did. I can only say that I'm happy for him, and I'm hopeful for the movie, while very much aware that Ghostbusters is incredibly difficult to replicate. The fact that Paul Feig's version was especially noxious and just unpleasant and dumb and really painful to sit through doesn't mean that even Ghostbusters 2 was great, or that there's any reason to believe that Ghostbusters 3, sight unseen, is going to be fantastic. It is a formula that will be very difficult to replicate, and a fan base that, like all fan bases these days, sadly, is very divided and very easily angered. And so I wish him luck, both Jason Reitman and the eventual cast and crew that will be announced later on. So let me get off this topic now, because I don't want Leslie Jones coming after me either. I really am fond of your work, Ms. Jones. I think you're incredibly funny, and I think you chose the wrong medium and the wrong set of words. And again, sorry, but I'm going to have to agree to disagree regarding the idea that the 2016 Ghostbusters reboot was some monumental film or cause. Even Paul Feig came out and said, I really just wanted to make a movie. I did not want to make a battle of the sexes cause here. So sorry about that. My bad. And yet, look, I've said this before, and I really do believe it. Your pain is your pain. I get how it can make you cross certain thresholds that you wouldn't otherwise. Behave in a way that you would normally find despicable. But if I were Leslie Jones, I'd walk those comments back, personally. Although, it's the internet. What was the line in The Social Network? The internet doesn't have an eraser, it's all in pen, something like that. Yeah, it's out there. But as comedians go, and as their offenses go, saying something sort of dumb and sort of, honestly, the word is hypocritical on Twitter, is hardly an impeachable offense these days. The more we learn about comedy, the more we learn how really creepy and disturbing certain Louis C.K. people can be. Being upset that a movie you were happy to be involved in is going back to its original iteration. Again, I think she's very wrong, but I think she's entitled to her pain. And people are entitled to respond to it. She's going to go public with her complaints. People are going to respond. That is what Twitter is. Anyway, I'm falling down a Leslie Jones rabbit hole, which sounds fun and psychedelic, but honestly, it's just kind of depressing. So here's something a bit more carefree, fun, goofy, lighthearted, almost aggressively so. Brand new trailer out for Shazam. That looks like a lot of fun. So let's watch it right now. I'll attach a link in the description for tonight's podcast episode. Check this out.
Daily Bats. I choose you. Say my name so my powers will become yours.
Shazam! Okay, the effects in this movie are great. I mean, the effects in the trailer are great. The opening scene with Billy in the Rock of Eternity looks fantastic. And the Shazam thing where he brings on the lightning, just awesome. And Black Adam looks amazing too. So the tagline here is worth noting. He's not so serious is the tagline for this trailer, which is, of course, a throwback to probably the best superhero movie of all time and a lighthearted jab, not an insult, at the why so serious. And DC, I think what's really going on here is that they're acknowledging tacitly that from Man of Steel all the way through, honestly, a little bit of Aquaman, but really Man of Steel through Justice League, they created this cinematic universe with a director who didn't really have that correct skill set. I actually think Zack Snyder's a very good director and filmmaker, but he made terrible DC Comics movies. And until someone made the decision to end that relationship, it was going to go down this dark, dreary hole forever. But they're now emerging, and they're going full, comedy goofy with Shazam, which is an interesting choice.
I'd like to purchase some of your finest beer, please.
Shazam.
A lair. Yes. If you have a location on a cliff, a castle-esque type thing.
Overlooking some water.
Splashing on rocks and stuff, then we will take that.
Experience it in IMAX.
That, of course, was Shazam with Freddie Freeman asking a real estate agent for help obtaining a lair, a Shazam cave, if you will. It looks very funny and also very action-packed. Black Adam looks badass. Looks like a great film. I'm very excited for it. It's in theaters April 5th. And again, I'll put up a link to that trailer in the description for tonight's podcast episode, along with links to my various social media accounts. Let's see. Well, for one, you can email me, matt@mattsager.com, or call me at 646-535-4788. You can also get me on Twitter. I'm at Matt Sager. On Instagram, I'm Real Matt Sager. And on Facebook, I'm everywhere. Got my own personal page, The Matt Sager. My voiceover page is Matt Sager VO. And this podcast page is Matt Sager Podcast. Also, in the links for tonight's podcast description, look for links to my Patreon, patreon.com/Matt Sager, and my Matt Sager Podcast merch store from my good friends at wehavemerch.com. I've got t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, stickers, and I believe some other cool stuff too, so please check that out. As for the rest, my other social media profiles, my voiceover reels and contact information, articles, blog posts, archive back episodes of this podcast, and more. You can find all of that at mattsagervoiceover.com.